Hi there, this is Jaden with Adventure Pilot. Today I'll be giving you an in-depth tutorial of instrument layouts and how to optimize them for your flight. To start off, instrument layouts can be managed by clicking the Instrument Group button in the bottom right. iFly EFB has 4 preset templates. These are the basic, extended, HSI, and then a blank template, but currently I have stuff in there that I'll show you in a second. To edit these, select the template that you'd like to edit, then click Customize. Once you click Customize, you'll get this controller that has 6 different options to edit these instruments. And if you hold in the black space, you can move this around to, say, uncover something behind it if something was there. To edit the instruments, tap on the instrument that you would like to select. It'll then highlight it red, indicating that is the selected instrument. From here, you'll notice the options at the bottom will highlight, indicating you can now click them. So for example, you can tap toggle size to change the size of the instrument, then toggle color. Changing the size, color, and location is very important to make sure that these do not restrict your view, and this largely depends on what kind of device you're using, such as a phone or tablet, which may restrict the space you have for instruments and the amount of them. Because I'm on a computer today, I have a lot of space to move these instruments around and to put on my screen. And I'll show you a few examples towards the end of the video how this will look on, say, an iPad or an iPhone. Once you've changed the size or color, you can then grab your instrument and drag it around the screen wherever you'd like. Generally, you're going to want instruments of the same color next to each other. At least that's a good design philosophy for it. That way your eyes can snap to the specific instrument area that you're looking for. If you'd like to remove an instrument, you can select the instrument and then click Delete Instrument. To add a new instrument, click Add Instrument, and then you'll be given a menu with about 50 different options to choose from. Select the instrument, then click Add. And then, of course, you drag that into place. Now I'm going to go a little more in depth into actual philosophy for using instrument layouts, and I'll show you that by showing you one that I currently have set up. So I'm going to click Cancel just to remove all of my edits that I've made, and I will go ahead and show you the instrument layout. To hot swap between these in flight, click Instrument Group, and then you'd select the instrument layout you'd like. For me, I have one set up here in the blank option. And you'll notice in the white space, I have my current information such as ground speed, track, bearing, GPS altitude, and AGL altitude. In the green section, I have all the information relating to my next waypoint, such as the estimated time en route, distance, and which waypoint it is. Then I have the yellow section, which is the same thing, just for the final, which is Norman today. And then in the blue, I have some supplemental information such as the flight duration and the current Zulu time. One thing to note is that some of these instruments that are being displayed in iFly are only going to be displayed once certain information is available to us. If we clear my flight plan, you'll notice that some of this information is actually going to go away. And that's because right now there's no next waypoint and there's not even a final waypoint, so iFly doesn't have any information to populate those with. But if we go ahead and restore the flight plan, you'll see those come back up. That's the same for a lot of the information concerning external devices that you connect to, such as ADS-B in, which I'll jump into in a moment. To show you these instruments in action, I'm going to go ahead and start a simulated flight along this VFR cross-country from Durant to Norman. To start a simulated flight, you can just click Menu, Start Simulation Mode, Auto-Fly Flight Plan, and then choose whichever speed. Let's just say 200 knots. As we get moving here, you'll notice the ET is going to decrease just because we're gaining speed. And then now we can see our distance ticking down and our altitude increasing. As we reached my next waypoint, you can see how the next waypoint section that I have in green has updated some of the information, including the estimated time and route, the distance to the next waypoint, and the next waypoint name. iFly EFB can display some special information if you're connected to an external device. To start, I'll show you what information you can get from an ADSB in. Click Instrument Group, Customize, Add Instrument. First off, we have the ADSB status instrument. All this lets you know is if you are connected to an ADSB device. You can also display an attitude indicator, which will get AHRS information from an external device. That's typically sourced from ADSB. You can also display a magnetic heading instrument, which will also be getting that information from AHRS. The slip indicator will also populate. And then finally, one of the most useful instruments is the traffic radar. It'll give you two options to select from. There's this smaller traffic button, which will indicate the nearest traffic to you with their direction and distance. And then it'll also populate this radar screen, this quote unquote radar screen, which is just a top-down view of your aircraft and the relative position of other aircraft on a simplified map. So you can put that wherever you'd like. And then again, you can change the size. Say we wanted it that big, we would just change the size and click save. It does go away, and the only time that's going to pop up is if you get a traffic warning or if you tap on the traffic instrument. Currently, I'm not connected to an ADSB device and I am only doing a simulation, so you'll notice that none of these are going to be populated. Now that I've shown you what information you can get from an ADSB in, I can also show you some information that you can get using an external device that provides pedostatic information, such as the eye-level bomb. If you click Instrument Group and Customize, then Add Instrument, iFly has the ability to actually display the indicated airspeed and altitude from the bomb. So here we can go ahead and remove some of this information to go ahead and just put in our indicated altitude. And then we can also go ahead and put in our indicated airspeed. One thing I want you guys to recognize is that these instrument layouts are fully customizable, so you don't have to do anything like what I've set up here today. You can totally customize it to be whatever you'd like. And you'll notice again, I'm not connected to a bomb, so I do not have airspeed or indicated altitude available. Interesting enough, you can also get angle of attack information from some of these external devices. So we have an angle of attack indicator that's available, an outside air temperature instrument, and even a G load instrument. On the opposite end of the spectrum, here's what an instrument layout on a phone would look like. It's going to be a lot more simplified with a lot less instruments to make sure you're making the most of your space. With that, I think that's about all I have to show you for instruments. Just I do want to give you a quick few reminders. One, these instrument layouts are fully customizable. So there's a lot of this information in here that may already be supplemented by avionics in your aircraft, or it's just stuff that you don't need. And so it's totally fine to go into the app and even just delete some instruments in even the basic layout. That might just free up more space to just look at the sectional chart if that's all you need the app for. There is also going to be varying setups for what type of flights you're doing, if it's local, if it's a cross country, IFR or VFR. And so that's something to keep in mind while setting these up. And the last thing I want to touch on is that these instruments are just a supplement. And so they're getting this information typically from a phone's GPS. So occasionally, like stuff like the GPS altitude won't match up perfectly with what you're seeing on your gauges in your aircraft, especially if you are just using the internal GPS on your device. Furthermore, it's important to still stay vigilant with looking out that outside the aircraft, especially in VFR. I think the FAA recommends roughly 90% of your time needs to be spent outside looking and scanning for aircraft, while the rest 10% would be scanning between your gauges and occasionally at your EFB for, say, ADS-B traffic or some of the supplemental information we provide. Other than that, that's all I have for you guys. Have a great day and stay safe.